what's going on. What is it about the NBA that no lead is safe?
Well, first of all, Rick, when you and I played, 24 down was a lot. In today's era where 3-point shots are prevalent, 24 points is really not that much to overcome. I mean, I've been doing the Bulls games here as the pre-half game and post-game analyst for the Bulls for almost 18 years now. And I have seen so many leads disappear because of the 3-point shot. I think that,
Hmm.
when you have players like Cade Cunningham, Tobias Harris, and Dorn and all those guys that have ultimate confidence and that have had a great season as the number one seed, that they had the confidence to say, look, this lead is not insurmountable. We can cut the lead. If we can get to 10, which they did by the fourth quarter, then we can win this game. I think that was the mindset. And Rick, of course, you being a former champion and everything, you know what the mindset is. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I like the Detroit Pistons to possibly get to the championship.
Wow. Kendall, you
Hold on, man. Forget. Listen,
I see
listen,
your Knicks.
Gerald.
I see your Knicks.
Hey, Gerald.
Kendall,
They win one
Kendall,
game. Y'all
come
all
on,
up.
man. Don't do
Ooh,
that. Come
dude.
on.
Go New York. Go New York.
Kendall, don't
Go.
do that, Kendall.
Man, you better listen, that's like the Giants, okay? I don't want to hear it. But
Yeah,
Kendall, our philosophy when we won our championships, our philosophy was no, and that was back when the three-pointer wasn't as prevalent as it is now. You only use
yeah,
that was like break the glass and say, okay, I need to, call the fire department. Our thing was
right.
we had a saying when we were down 20 a couple of times. In fact, we had a series that went against the eighth seeded team, but back then it was the best of five. We
Uh-huh.
kind of it was against the Washington Bullets, and that's
Okay.
we go like we were down, we were down 2-1 going to Washington. Our whole philosophy was we let our defense do the work because all of a
Mhm.
sudden, like I said, people get tight. They couldn't make a shot for 9 damn minutes, nine
Mhm.
straight minutes. They scored. I think they made one field goal, but that was
Mhm.
like I said. The game is not over until it's over, and it's not an insurmountable lead if you don't calculate it down 20. Only thing you look at is we used to look at it. We're down 10 stops. That's
Right.
it, one at a time. So I understand what you're saying. And in today's league, the 3-pointer is prevalent. I mean, the Knicks, they blasted Philadelphia. And, but
Yeah.
each game has its own entity. So what do you see? And not saying we're going to I'm talking about the Knicks. What do you see with Philadelphia, the adjustments that they need to make?
Well, one thing they need to do, and we all know that the first game is somewhat of a throwaway game in the playoffs sometimes, especially when you coming off of a big victory, which the Sixers did against Toronto. You going into Madison Square Garden.
No,
Of course, the
Boston.
Knicks. I'm sorry, against Boston.
Hmm.
Game 7, correct? So
Yep.
you're going into Boston off an emotional win. You're going into Madison Square Garden. The Knicks waiting for you. Okay, they've been rested, and you're playing in the Garden, and Rick, you know how it is playing in the Garden. It's tough, no matter what type of team that they have, and they just ran into something that they weren't quite prepared for just yet. But when you got Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Joel Embiid, who, in my opinion, is the X factor for this whole series.
Hmm.
Um, Once you get used, it's like in a boxing match. You get hit a couple times, and then you have to adjust yourself, get your sea legs, and now you're ready to fight. I think that's what's going to happen in Game 2 against the Knicks. And going back to your point with your defense when you were winning championships with the Pistons, I think that this current Pistons team has the same type of mentality because if you notice against the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were making things hard for James Harden, you know, because they was up in him. And Rick, they allow sometimes, they've changed a lot of rules defensively in the NBA,
Hmm.
but now in the playoffs, it seems like they're letting them play like we used to play. That's why the Pistons were able to cut the Orlando Magic's water off. That's why they was sometimes were able to cut the Cleveland Cavaliers water off last night. That's why I like the Pistons.
Man. Hey, Kendall, I want to include you also into this, Rick, as well. You know, it's really interesting because if you look at the series between the Pistons and the Magic, and then as well as the Spurs versus the Timberwolves, how much experience factors into it? Because I look at the Orlando Magic and look at their offensive possessions in that game 6, especially in that third, kind of going in that fourth quarter, they kind of actually played into the hands of the Pistons, enabling them to come back just because of the shot selections, really just staying with the three. But you can clearly see that they had no chemistry and experience of playing together in those tight moments. And you kind of see that in somewhat in that Spurs and Timberwolves game, which that first game kind of shocked everybody. How much experience would you say has been a factor and obviously the Pistons overcoming the Magic, and then obviously in that game 1 with the Spurs and Timberwolves?
Yeah, experience is everything. You know, I can remember going to the Chicago Stadium when I was in college to watch Rick and those guys play with the Michael Jordan led Chicago Bulls. You know, and honestly, over 3 quarters, the Bulls would be playing with the Pistons and everything. But then come that fourth quarter, when the Pistons decided to use their experience and put this team away, they did it each and every time. And I think that was all because of experience. I mean, you look at Kate Cunningham. I think he's wise beyond his years, you know, as far as handling the basketball at 6'8", can play the point guard position. His basketball IQ is probably amongst the highest in the league. That's experience. He had that experience with the New York Knicks in that series last year, and I think that carried over. Same thing with San Antonio and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Experience is key, especially when you get to the second, third round in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I agree with what Kendall just said. You do have to have the experience. You have to learn to lose in order to win. And
Yeah.
I look at the Minnesota, not only Minnesota, but I look at the Pistons as well. It's about, how do you figure it out? And I talk about a lot of times where it's a lot of guys that come in this league that don't understand what this league is about. Physicality comes, and when we were playing Orlando Magic, I think it was a letdown for Orlando when Wagner didn't come back in that third
Yeah. Yeah.
period. And a
Yeah.
lot of times that's a letdown as well because your flow is done. Because what they were doing, they really cut Duran off. It was like Duran wasn't really into that particular series because what they do in the playoffs, they cut off the heads of the snake. They try to make sure that, okay, we ain't gonna let K just go left, right, or whatever, or we ain't gonna let Duncan Robinson shoot these open threes. Each game has a different story, a different chapter